The Godfather is a cinematic masterpiece, but the story behind the camera is even more unbelievable than the one on screen. And once you hear fact number 6, you'll realize the real drama didn't stop when the director yelled, "Cut." Fact 1.
Godfather. Good.
Marlon Brando is now synonymous with Don Vito Corleone. But in 1970, Paramount didn't want him anywhere near the project. Brando had a reputation for being impossible to work with. He was considered washed up and uninsurable due to past behavior on film sets. The studio issued a memo. Under no circumstances will Brando be in this picture. Director Francis Ford Coppola, however, had other plans. He secretly filmed Brando in costume at his home, stuffing tissues in his cheeks and lowering his voice. The transformation stunned studio executives. They reversed course, but only under brutal conditions. Brando had to take a pay cut, submit to a screen test, and put up a performance bond. He accepted without complaint. He knew this role could resurrect his career. Brando refused to memorize lines, instead reading them from cue cards around the set. Still, his performance became legendary. That screen test is now considered one of the most influential in casting history. Without it, the film would have looked and sounded completely different. Even decades later, Coppola insists no one else could have played the Don. The actor they didn't want gave the film its soul, all because of a home video and a handful of tissues. Fact 2.
What I want, what's most important to me.
Al Pacino wasn't the studio's first choice to play Michael Corleone. Not even close. Executives thought he was too short, too quiet, and too inexperienced. They lobbied hard for bigger names like Robert Redford and Jack Nicholson. Coppola pushed for Pacino because he saw the quiet intensity in him. After the first week of filming, the studio was still unimpressed. They seriously considered firing him and replacing him with James Caan. Pacino didn't even know how close he was to being cut. His big break came during the restaurant assassination scene. That performance changed everything. Executives finally saw the transformation from shy son to cold-blooded killer. From that point on, Pacino had their respect. Even so, he was paid less than some supporting actors. The lack of trust haunted him throughout production. Coppola had to fight for him constantly. Pacino himself said he thought he was terrible in the early scenes. Yet today, his performance is considered one of the greatest in film history. If they'd fired him, The Godfather wouldn't be what it is. Sometimes near disaster is what greatness is built on, and Pacino came inches from never being remembered. Fact 3.
Because a man who doesn't spend time with his family can never be a real man.
The Italian-American Civil Rights League, led by real mob boss Joe Colombo, took aim at The Godfather from the beginning. They feared the film would promote negative stereotypes. Colombo organized protests, letter campaigns, and even threatened physical intimidation. Studio executives were rattled. A secret meeting was arranged between producers and Colombo's people. The mafia demanded one thing: remove the word mafia from the script. The producers agreed. To this day, mafia is never said once in the entire film. In exchange, Colombo gave the movie his blessing. His men even helped provide security during filming. Some were used as extras in background scenes, including the wedding. This strange truce turned enemies into collaborators. It also gave the film a layer of realism that money couldn't buy. Colombo was shot later that year, unrelated to the film, but the arrangement held. Coppola later confirmed this meeting took place and altered the course of production. The mob didn't just watch The Godfather. They had a hand in shaping it, and without them, the film might have never made it past the first scene. Fact 4. One of the most horrifying scenes in The Godfather is when Jack Woltz wakes up to find a severed horse head in his bed. And yes, that head was completely real. It was sourced from a pet food company that provided animal remains for processing. Actor John Marley believed a fake head would be used, but Coppola and the crew had other plans. When Marley lifted the sheets, his scream was completely genuine. The shock, the smell, the texture, All of it was real. That one take was used in the final cut. Marley was reportedly furious afterward, but admitted it worked. The production kept the real head on ice until the day of shooting. Animal rights groups didn't protest because the horse wasn't killed for the film. The scene became one of the most iconic in movie history. It's been referenced in everything from The Simpsons to music videos. No prop could have delivered the same reaction. It was a creative gamble and a disturbing one, but it worked. And it cemented the film's commitment to authenticity, no matter the cost. Real shock created real power. Fact 5. Studio executives thought it was too slow and had too many characters introduced at once. They pressured Coppola to cut it drastically or move it later in the film. But Coppola stood firm, arguing that it was essential to establish the Corleone family dynamic. The scene wasn't just about celebration, it was about power, respect, and quiet intimidation. It introduces the Don granting favors, showing how business and family blend in this world. Real Italian-American extras were used to make the party feel authentic. Much of the food was real, prepared by actual families on set. The lively music, dancing, and long takes gave it a documentary-style realism. Actors were told to stay in character between takes to maintain atmosphere. The wedding sequence also helped establish tone and pacing. Slow, deliberate, and full of tension beneath the surface. When test audiences responded positively, the studio backed off. What they once wanted to cut became one of the most praised scenes in the film. It allowed viewers to meet nearly every major character in one setting. Critics called it a masterclass in cinematic exposition. Coppola later said it was the most personal sequence in the movie. He saw his own family reflected in every toast and whispered threat. Sometimes what seems too long is exactly what audiences need to settle in. The Don's world started with a celebration and an invitation to loyalty. Fact 6.
We've known each other many years, but this is the first time you ever came to me for counsel, for help.
One of the most iconic images in the film is Brando sitting in a chair, calmly stroking a cat. That cat was never in the script. It was a stray wandering around the Paramount lot. Francis Ford Coppola spotted it just minutes before filming the opening scene. He handed it to Brando and said, "Try this." The cat instantly relaxed in Brando's lap and began purring loudly. So loudly, in fact, that much of Brando's dialogue had to be re-recorded in post. Brando barely acknowledged the cat during the scene, which made him seem even more powerful. It softened the Don while reinforcing his calm control. The contrast between petting a kitten and ordering violence was chilling. The image became iconic, copied endlessly in pop culture. No one knows what happened to the cat after filming. It was never named or credited. Yet it's considered one of the most effective last-minute additions in film history. Brando never broke character, even as the cat fidgeted and shifted. Coppola later called it a gift from the movie gods. It added depth and tension to the very first scene, all from a stray that just happened to walk on set. Sometimes the best choices aren't planned, they just purr into frame. Fact 7. Before filming began, real-life mob boss Joe Colombo organized protests against The Godfather. He believed it would portray Italian-Americans unfairly and glorify organized crime. He and his group, the Italian-American Civil Rights League, threatened to shut down production. The producers agreed to meet with Colombo privately. During the meeting, Colombo demanded that the word mafia be removed from the script. The filmmakers agreed and followed through. As a result, the word mafia is never spoken once in the entire movie. Colombo also requested changes to character names and dialogue. In return, the League dropped their opposition. They even helped the film secure extras, costumes, and security. Many believe some background actors in the wedding and street scenes were actual mob associates. The film's gritty realism was helped by these unusual collaborators. Colombo was shot and paralyzed not long after the agreement was made. His shooting had nothing to do with the film, but it ended the League's involvement. Francis Ford Coppola confirmed the meeting happened and said it saved the movie. Without the agreement, filming might have been stalled indefinitely. The mob's fingerprints aren't just on the story, they're in the film's DNA, a crime film shaped by actual criminals, and the audience never knew. Fact 8. Francis Ford Coppola didn't just direct The Godfather, he embedded himself into it. His sister Talia Shire played Connie Corleone. His father, Carmine Coppola, composed key parts of the score. His daughter, Sofia Coppola, appeared as the infant in the baptism scene. She would later play Mary Corleone in The Godfather Part 3. Coppola also gave small roles to cousins, uncles, and close family friends. The wedding scene included real Italian families, many of whom weren't professional actors. Coppola wanted the party to feel like his own childhood. The wine was real, the toasts were improvised, and the laughter was genuine. He encouraged actors to eat between takes to keep the energy natural. This use of real family gave the film warmth and texture. Even critics said the movie felt like a home video of a powerful, dangerous family. Coppola's goal was to blur the line between film and memory. His strategy worked. The Corleones felt authentic from the first frame. Many extras in the background weren't paid. They came for the food. Coppola believed authenticity mattered more than polish, and his family helped him build the most believable crime dynasty in movie history. Sometimes the best casting director is your own mother. Fact 9. Don Vito Corleone's death in the tomato garden is a quiet, devastating moment, but it was inspired by a tragedy in Francis Ford Coppola's life. As a child, he witnessed his grandfather collapse in the backyard while playing with family. The image stayed with him, vivid, peaceful, and shocking. When writing Vito's death, he wanted to capture that same mix of life and finality. Brando improvised much of the scene, including the orange peel monster face. The child actor didn't know Brando would fall, making the reaction real. The scene was shot in natural light with minimal crew. No dramatic music, just the sound of birds and footsteps. It marked the end of an era, not with a gunshot, but with a breath. The orange was symbolic, often used before death scenes in the trilogy. Coppola has said it's one of the most personal moments he ever filmed. It mirrored the real feeling of watching someone go while life goes on. Brando's performance was subtle, soft, and final. No words were needed, only movement, shadow, and gravity. It became one of the quietest and most unforgettable deaths in cinema because it was rooted not in fiction, but in memory. Fact 10. During early production, The Godfather was seen as a doomed project. Paramount was unhappy with Coppola's direction, casting choices, and lighting style. Executives thought the film was too dark, visually and thematically. Coppola came close to being fired multiple times. He carried a resignation letter in his jacket for weeks. Other directors were brought in to observe him, hoping he'd quit. Brando's method acting and Pacino's brooding style made execs nervous. They wanted a faster-paced gangster film, not an opera about family. Coppola refused to compromise. He even paid out of pocket to keep certain scenes intact. Test screenings changed everything. Audiences were mesmerized by the pacing, power, and emotion. The studio backed off, and then took full credit when the film became a hit. It won Best Picture at the Oscars and became an instant classic. But it almost didn't survive week one. What we now call a masterpiece was nearly thrown in the trash. Sometimes greatness begins with everyone telling you you're wrong, and Coppola proved them all wrong, every frame at a time. Bonus fact.
The winner is Marlon Brando in The Godfather.
But he very regretfully cannot accept this very generous award.
In 1973, Marlon Brando won the Academy Award for Best Actor for his role as Don Vito Corleone. But instead of accepting the Oscar, he shocked Hollywood by boycotting the ceremony. In his place, he sent Native American activist Sachin Littlefeather to make a public protest. Dressed in full traditional attire, she walked on stage and declined the award on his behalf. She cited the film industry's treatment of Native Americans and the federal government's handling of Wounded Knee as reasons. The audience responded with a mix of applause and boos. Backstage, John Wayne reportedly had to be restrained by security staff. Clint Eastwood made a sarcastic remark shortly afterward, intensifying the controversy. Littlefeather was only allowed to read part of Brando's full written statement. The next day, the full letter was published in the New York Times. Brando's move sparked a massive media storm and years of debate. Littlefeather later said she was blacklisted by the industry for her appearance. She remained proud of the moment and continued her activism. In 2022, nearly 50 years later, the Academy issued a formal apology to her. Brando's protest became one of the boldest political statements in Oscars history. It forced the entertainment industry to confront its biases, even if only briefly. And it proved that Don Vito's quiet voice wasn't the only message Brando had to deliver. Sometimes the most powerful performance is the one that happens off-screen.